The hardest battles are often fought without anyone hearing a single word. The fluorescent lights hummed softly above the checkout lanes, washing everything beneath them in pale white light. Shopping carts rolled past. Automatic doors opened and closed. Somewhere near the bakery, a little boy laughed as his father placed a chocolate chip cookie into the cart. Life continued. As though nothing extraordinary was happening, Claire Bennett stood quietly at register 4, her baby daughter sleeping peacefully against her shoulder beneath a faded cream blanket. She reached into her worn leather wallet, then into the pocket of her cardigan, then into a small zippered pouch inside her canvas tote. One by one, the coins landed on the counter. Quarters, dimes, nickels, pennies. Each tiny click echoed louder than it should have. She counted carefully. $47.12. Her fingers stopped moving. For a brief moment, she simply stared at the small pile of change. Then she offered the cashier a gentle smile. "Would you mind counting it one more time?" The cashier nodded kindly. "Of course." Claire shifted her daughter a little higher against her shoulder, gently brushing a loose strand of honey blonde hair away from the baby's peaceful face. "You are almost home, sweetheart," she whispered. The little girl slept on, completely unaware that tomorrow's breakfast depended on what happened over the next few seconds. Inside the shopping basket rested only 3 things: a loaf of whole wheat bread, a gallon of milk, 1 can of infant formula. Nothing else. No snacks. No coffee. No flowers. Only necessities. Behind her, the checkout line slowly grew longer. Someone sighed. Another customer glanced impatiently at a wristwatch. A shopping cart bumped lightly against another. Claire heard every sound. She kept her eyes on the counter. The cashier finished counting. She looked up with genuine sympathy. "I am so sorry. There is still $8.43 missing." Silence settled between them. Claire closed her eyes for one slow breath. When she opened them again, her expression had not changed. She did not complain. She did not apologize. She did not ask anyone to help. Instead, she reached carefully toward the can of infant formula. "Then I will put this back." The cashier hesitated. "Are you sure?" Claire nodded gently. "My daughter still has enough for tonight." It was true. Just barely. Tomorrow morning would be another story. She lifted the can with both hands, almost as though it deserved an apology for leaving with someone else instead. Around her, the grocery store continued exactly as before. Receipts printed. Children talked. Doors opened. Life moved forward. Then, a calm voice came from directly behind her. "So that is your decision." Claire turned slowly. Standing a few feet away was a tall man wearing a charcoal overcoat over a tailored navy suit. His dark brown hair was neatly styled. His steel blue eyes held no pity, no judgment, and no impatience. Only quiet understanding. He had been standing there the entire time, watching. Not her poverty, her courage. Neither of them spoke for a heartbeat. The distance between them felt strangely small. Finally, he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Is that all you have left?" Claire lowered her eyes for only a moment before meeting his gaze again. A soft, almost embarrassed smile appeared across her kind face. "It is enough." Then she looked down at her sleeping daughter. "I will figure something out. I always do." The stranger remained silent. Around them, the world continued moving. But inside that tiny space between a checkout counter and a shopping cart, 2 completely different lives had quietly begun to change. Neither of them knew it yet. One ordinary evening would soon become the moment they both remembered for the rest of their lives. The man did not answer immediately. Instead, he looked at Claire Bennett with the quiet attention of someone who understood that certain moments should never be rushed. He did not notice her faded cardigan. He did not notice the worn edges of her canvas tote. He noticed the way she refused to ask for help, even when life had left her with almost nothing. There was dignity in that silence, more than money could ever buy. Claire gently lowered the can of infant formula onto the counter. "I appreciate your concern," she said softly, "but we will be all right." Her voice carried no resentment, no self-pity, only the calm determination of a mother who had already survived countless difficult mornings. The stranger nodded once. I believe you. The cashier looked from one face to the other, unsure whether to speak. The impatient line behind them had grown unusually quiet. People who had been checking their phones only moments earlier now watched without saying a word. The stranger reached inside his overcoat. He removed a simple black credit card and placed it on the counter. I would like to pay for everything. Claire shook her head almost immediately. I cannot accept that. You do not know me. A faint smile appeared across his face. That is true. But I know enough. She looked at him with puzzled eyes. I saw a mother willing to give up her own peace before taking away what someone else might need. Claire let out a small breath. It is only baby formula. He looked toward the sleeping little girl. No, it is tomorrow morning. For the first time that evening, Claire had no answer. The cashier quietly scanned the groceries. The register chimed. The receipt slowly emerged from the printer. The stranger accepted the bag before Claire could reach for it. Then he borrowed a pen from the cashier. Without speaking, he turned the receipt over and carefully wrote a single sentence. Every good mother deserves one easier day. He folded the receipt neatly and slipped it into the grocery bag. Claire noticed the movement but not the words. I will pay you back, she said. His smile became warmer. I do not believe you owe me anything. I do. You already repaid me. She frowned gently. I did. You reminded me that quiet strength still exists. For a brief second, neither of them spoke. The grocery store sound slowly returned. Shopping carts rolled forward. The scanner beeped. Someone thanked the cashier at another register. Life resumed its ordinary rhythm. Claire accepted the grocery bag with both hands. Thank you. The words were simple, yet they carried months of exhaustion, sacrifice, and hope. The stranger inclined his head. I hope tomorrow feels a little lighter. Claire smiled. This time it reached her tired blue eyes. I think it already does. She adjusted her sleeping daughter against her shoulder and walked toward the automatic doors. Cool evening air drifted inside as they opened. The parking lot shimmered beneath rows of streetlights. She disappeared into the quiet night, never once looking back. The stranger remained where he was. Only after she had driven away did the phone inside his coat begin vibrating again. Missed calls. Urgent messages. A board meeting waiting downtown. He glanced briefly at the screen before slipping the phone back into his pocket. For reasons even he could not fully explain, helping one determined mother had suddenly become the most important appointment of his entire day. Claire Bennett drove home beneath a sky washed with soft shades of gold and blue. The old sedan rattled gently along familiar streets, its engine humming with the quiet persistence of something that had survived more years than anyone expected. Every stoplight reflected across the windshield. Every mile felt a little lighter than the one before. In the back seat, her daughter slept peacefully inside a well-loved car seat, wrapped snugly beneath the same cream blanket she had carried through the grocery store. Claire glanced into the rearview mirror. A smile slowly appeared. You are going to have breakfast tomorrow, sweetheart. Her voice was barely louder than a whisper. And you will never know how close we came. The little girl stirred for a moment before falling asleep again. Claire turned the radio down until only silence remained. Sometimes silence carried more comfort than music. When she reached the small apartment building, the evening air had grown cooler. She balanced the grocery bag carefully in one hand while lifting her daughter into her other arm. The climb to the second floor felt familiar. Slow, careful, steady. Inside, the apartment welcomed them with quiet simplicity. The kitchen was small enough that only one person could stand comfortably beside the sink. The refrigerator hummed softly. A calendar covered with handwritten work schedules and daycare reminders hung. Beside the microwave, everything inside the apartment reflected careful choices. Nothing had been wasted. Claire placed the groceries on the counter. She set the can of infant formula down first. For several long seconds, she simply looked at it. To someone else, it was only a can sitting beneath a kitchen light. To her, it was tomorrow morning. She slowly unpacked the bread and milk before noticing the folded receipt tucked neatly inside the grocery bag. Curious, she unfolded it. Her eyes settled on the handwritten sentence. Every good mother deserves one easier day. She read the words once, then again. A quiet breath escaped her lips. No one had called her extraordinary. No one had praised her. The stranger had simply recognized what she had been trying so hard to protect: her dignity. Claire folded the receipt with unusual care. Instead of throwing it away, she slipped it inside the small leather wallet where she kept the only photograph of Lily taken on her first birthday. Some memories deserve to stay close. Across downtown Chicago, lights still glowed inside Sterling Global headquarters. Alexander Sterling stepped out of a conference room long after most employees had gone home. His executive assistant caught up with him in the hallway. "The board was disappointed you arrived late." Alexander smiled politely. "I understand." She handed him a leather portfolio. "Tomorrow's interview schedule." He accepted it almost absent-mindedly. As they walked toward the executive elevator, he opened the folder. The first few resumes passed without much attention. Then one name quietly stopped him: Claire Bennett. His footsteps slowed. Attached to the application was a simple photograph. The same gentle face. The same tired blue eyes. The same quiet strength he had witnessed only an hour earlier. His assistant noticed him pause. "Everything all right?" Alexander looked down at the resume once more. According to the application, Claire had spent years working temporary office positions while raising her daughter alone. Her references described her using nearly identical words: reliable, patient, compassionate. Alexander closed the folder gently, not because he had found the perfect employee, because life had somehow placed the same remarkable woman in front of him twice, in a single evening. And deep inside, he could not shake the feeling that their story was only just beginning. Morning arrived with gentle sunlight spilling through the thin curtains of Claire Bennett's apartment. She had barely slept, not because she was worried, because hope had quietly returned, and hope could keep a tired heart awake longer than fear ever could. The folded receipt still rested inside her wallet. Before leaving for the day, she opened it once more. Her eyes settled on the familiar sentence: "Every good mother deserves one easier day." Claire smiled softly. Then she slipped the wallet back into her tote bag. The words were never meant to solve her problems. They simply reminded her that someone had seen them. Across the small bedroom, Lily rubbed her sleepy eyes and reached both little arms toward her mother. "Good morning, Mommy." Claire knelt beside the bed and wrapped her daughter in a warm embrace. "Good morning, sweetheart. I had a happy dream." "You did. We had pancakes." Claire laughed gently. "I hope we do very soon." After breakfast, she drove Lily to daycare before making her way across downtown Chicago. Traffic moved steadily beneath a bright autumn sky. Glass buildings reflected the morning sun, making the entire city seem brighter than it had only one day before. When the navigation announced her destination, Claire slowly lifted her eyes. Sterling Global headquarters. She had researched the company before submitting her application weeks earlier. Seeing the building in person felt entirely different. The tower rose high above the surrounding streets, elegant without feeling cold, powerful without needing to announce it. Claire sat quietly inside her aging sedan for one last moment. She looked at her reflection in the rearview mirror. She adjusted the collar of her cream cardigan, smoothed the front of her light blue blouse, took one slow breath. "You are here because you earned an interview," she whispered to herself. "Walk in like you believe it." She stepped out of the car. Professionals crossed the plaza carrying coffee cups and briefcases. Conversations drifted through the crisp morning air. No one noticed the woman carrying a simple fabric tote bag. Claire did not mind. She had never needed attention, only opportunity. Inside the marble lobby, warm natural light poured through towering windows. Fresh flowers stood beside the reception desk. Soft piano music floated through the open space. Everything felt calm, intentional, welcoming. The receptionist smiled as Claire approached. "Good morning. Good morning. I am Claire Bennett. I am here for an interview." The receptionist checked the schedule before returning an encouraging smile. "Welcome, Miss Bennett. Please take elevator 4 to the 32nd floor. Someone from Human Resources will meet you there." "Thank you." Claire stepped into the elevator. The polished doors closed quietly behind her. As the numbers climbed higher, she gently placed one hand over her tote bag where the folded receipt rested inside. It was not a lucky charm. It was a reminder. Meanwhile, several floors above, Alexander Sterling stood inside his executive office overlooking the city. His assistant entered carrying the interview schedule. The candidates have started arriving. Alexander accepted the folder. His eyes naturally found one familiar name. Claire Bennett. He closed the folder without another word. Then he picked up his jacket. I will observe today's interviews. His assistant looked surprised. You rarely attend entry-level interviews. Alexander walked toward the door. Today feels different. Neither of them realized that within the next hour, the woman carrying quiet dignity in a canvas tote bag would unknowingly walk back into the life of the man who had already begun to admire her long before he ever learned her name. Conference Room 3 overlooked the Chicago skyline. Morning sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting long reflections across the polished table where 3 interviewers waited with neatly organized folders and glasses of water. Claire Bennett paused outside the door for one quiet breath. Then she smiled gently and stepped inside. Good morning. The interviewers returned her greeting with professional warmth. Good morning, Miss Bennett. Please have a seat. Claire thanked them before carefully placing her simple folder on the table. She noticed the elegant surroundings. The polished wood, the city stretching beyond the glass, the quiet confidence of everyone in the room. For just a moment, she wondered whether she truly belonged there. Then she remembered Lily. The uncertainty quietly disappeared. The lead interviewer smiled. Tell us a little about yourself. Claire folded her hands comfortably. I have spent the past several years working wherever I was needed. I have supported offices, helped customers organize schedules, and learned that every workplace succeeds because people choose to help one another. She smiled softly. I have never believed any job is too small if it helps someone else's day become easier. One interviewer nodded while making a note. Another leaned forward. Your resume shows several different employers. Can you tell us why? Claire answered without hesitation. Most of those positions were temporary. Some companies reduced staff. Others simply reached the end of their contracts. She remained calm. I stayed until my work was finished. I left with gratitude. I never stopped looking for the next opportunity. Behind a large observation window hidden within the adjacent conference room, Alexander Sterling watched quietly. Only the director of human resources and his executive assistant knew he was there. He listened carefully, not for perfect answers, for honest ones. Another interviewer smiled kindly. What would your former managers say about you? Claire thought for only a moment. They would probably tell you that I arrive early. A few smiles appeared around the table. And they would tell you that I try to make difficult days easier for everyone around me. She paused. I cannot always solve every problem, but I can choose how I treat people. Alexander lowered his eyes briefly. The words reminded him of another ordinary place. A grocery store, a checkout counter, a mother quietly protecting her dignity. The interview continued naturally. What motivates you? Claire looked toward the sunlight filling the room. My daughter. The answer came gently. But not only because I want to provide for her. I want her to grow up believing that kindness and hard work still matter. The room became noticeably quieter. No answer sounded rehearsed. Nothing felt performed. Every sentence carried the quiet confidence of someone speaking from experience rather than preparation. The lead interviewer finally closed his notebook. Miss Bennett, thank you. We truly appreciate your time. Claire stood and smiled warmly. No, thank you for yours. She gathered her folder and walked toward the conference room door. The handle turned before she reached it. The door opened slowly. Standing on the other side was the same quiet stranger from the grocery store. The charcoal overcoat was gone. In its place was an impeccably tailored navy suit. Employees passing through the hallway immediately straightened. Good morning, Mr. Sterling. It is nice to see you, Mr. Sterling. Claire stopped walking. Her heartbeat seemed to disappear beneath the sudden silence. The gentle stranger, the handwritten note, the calm voice that had changed one difficult evening. He was not simply another customer. He was the man whose name stood proudly across the entire building. Alexander met her eyes with the same quiet smile she remembered. No pride, no distance, only kindness. Good morning, Miss Bennett. I hope your interview went well." In that single moment, Claire understood something she had never imagined. The man who had treated her with the greatest respect had possessed every reason in the world to expect it for himself. Claire stood motionless for a brief moment. She searched Alexander Sterling's face, almost expecting the kindness she had seen inside the grocery store to disappear now that she knew who he really was. It did not. His expression remained calm, warm, unchanged. He stepped slightly to one side, giving her room to leave the conference room comfortably. "I hope the interview treated you well," he said. His voice sounded exactly the same as it had the evening before. Quiet, steady, respectful. Claire smiled, still trying to process everything she had just discovered. "I think it went well." A small pause settled between them. Then she lowered her eyes. "I also wanted to thank you." Alexander shook his head gently. "You already did. I still feel that I owe you more." "You do not." His answer came without hesitation. Kindness should never leave someone feeling indebted. Claire looked at him for another moment. "I did not even know who you were." "I know. And you never told me." Alexander smiled faintly. "I wanted you to meet a person, not a title." The words stayed with her. Behind them, the interview panel quietly gathered their notes. None of them interrupted. Each sensed they were witnessing something unusually genuine. Alexander turned toward the interviewers. "I apologize for borrowing a few moments of your schedule." The lead interviewer smiled. "Not at all, Mr. Sterling." Alexander looked back at Claire. "I wish you a safe drive home. And regardless of today's outcome." He paused. "Thank you for being yourself." Claire blinked in surprise. No employer had ever said those words to her before. She nodded softly. "Thank you." Then she walked toward the elevators. The polished hallway reflected afternoon sunlight across the marble floor. Her footsteps echoed gently as she replayed every moment from the grocery store. The simple black card, the handwritten message, the quiet stranger who never mentioned his position. Everything suddenly made sense. Inside the executive conference room, the director of human resources closed the interview folder. She looked toward Alexander with thoughtful curiosity. "You already knew Miss Bennett?" Alexander nodded once. "We met yesterday." The director smiled. "Should we be concerned about favoritism?" Alexander answered calmly. "No. If anything, we should be more careful." He walked toward the window overlooking downtown Chicago. "She deserves exactly the same opportunity as every other candidate. No more. No less." The director listened quietly. Alexander continued. "If she receives an offer, it must be because she earned it. Nothing else." She nodded with complete understanding. "I believe the interview panel already feels that way." Alexander looked back. "Good. That is exactly how it should be." Meanwhile, Claire stepped outside the headquarters into the bright afternoon sunshine. A cool breeze drifted between the glass towers. The city moved with its usual rhythm. People hurried toward meetings. Taxi drivers waved at pedestrians. Street musicians filled the sidewalks with gentle melodies. Claire paused beside a flower planter and reached into her tote bag. She removed her wallet, then unfolded the receipt one more time. "Every good mother deserves one easier day." This time, the sentence meant something entirely different. It was no longer a gift from a stranger. It was proof that genuine character could exist behind extraordinary success. Far above the busy streets, Alexander happened to glance through his office window. He saw Claire standing quietly below, reading the folded receipt with a peaceful smile. He smiled as well, not because he had changed her life, because she had quietly reminded him of the kind of leader he had always hoped to become. The greatest lessons arrive from the people the world overlooks first. 3 days passed. For Claire Bennett, every morning began the same way. She packed Lily's lunch. She tied tiny shoelaces. She kissed a small forehead before daycare. Then she drove across the city to another temporary office assignment, carrying hope a little more carefully than before. Her phone never left her side. Every email notification made her glance toward the screen. Every unknown number made her heart beat a little faster. Though nothing arrived, she reminded herself that good decisions deserved patience. Even so, waiting could become its own kind of burden. Late Thursday afternoon, while organizing invoices inside a quiet accounting office, her phone vibrated gently across the desk. The caller identification displayed only 2 words: Sterling Global. Claire answered almost immediately. "Hello, this is Claire Bennett." A warm professional voice greeted her. "Good afternoon, Miss Bennett. This is Human Resources from Sterling Global." Claire sat a little straighter. "We would like to invite you back tomorrow morning for a final meeting at 10 o'clock. She blinked. "A final meeting?" "Yes. There are only 2 remaining candidates. We look forward to seeing you." The call ended. Claire remained still for several quiet seconds. Then she smiled. Not because she believed the position already belonged to her, because someone believed she deserved another opportunity to prove herself. That evening, Lily noticed the smile before Claire said a single word. "Something good happened." Claire laughed softly. "I think it might have." The little girl wrapped both arms around her mother. "You are getting the job." Claire kissed the top of her daughter's head. "I hope so." Lily looked up with complete confidence. "I already know." Children believed wonderful things so naturally. They reminded adults how hope was supposed to feel. The next morning, sunlight filled downtown Chicago with a clear autumn glow. Inside Sterling Global headquarters, the director of human resources entered Alexander Sterling's office carrying 2 interview folders. "We completed every evaluation." Alexander motioned toward the chair across from his desk. "Tell me what the panel found." She opened the first folder. "Excellent technical qualifications. Strong experience." She placed it aside. Then she opened the second. "Claire Bennett." Alexander listened without interrupting. The panel consistently described her using the same words. She glanced down at her notes. "Reliable. Patient. Trustworthy. Exceptional under pressure." She smiled. And perhaps the comment that appeared most often: "People immediately feel safe around her." Alexander leaned back quietly. "You cannot teach that." "No." The director nodded. "You cannot." She closed the folder. "I have interviewed thousands of applicants. Very few make experienced professionals forget they are conducting an interview." She did. Alexander walked toward the window overlooking the city below. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke quietly. "My mother once told me that resumes introduce skills." He paused. "But character introduces people." He turned back toward the conference table. Claire introduced herself before she ever entered this building. The director understood immediately. "You mean the grocery store?" Alexander nodded once. "I watched someone choose dignity when nobody expected anyone to notice. That matters." He rested one hand lightly on Claire's interview folder. "If she joins this company," he smiled faintly, "it will not be because I met her. It will be because every person in this building recognized the same quiet strength." Downstairs, completely unaware of the conversation taking place several floors above, Claire stepped through the revolving doors once again. She carried the same fabric tote bag, the same gentle smile, the same quiet determination. She believed she was walking into one final meeting. She did not yet realize that the qualities she had spent years protecting without recognition had already become the strongest recommendation anyone could have given her. Claire followed the human resources coordinator into a quiet executive meeting room. The space felt warm rather than intimidating. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, filling the room with a soft golden glow that reflected across the polished wooden table. Only one chair waited across from hers. Claire sat carefully, smoothing the sleeve of her cream cardigan while taking one slow breath. She reminded herself that whatever happened next, she had already given her best. A gentle knock broke the silence. The door opened. Alexander Sterling stepped inside carrying a single navy folder. There were no cameras, no executives, no ceremony, only 2 people sitting across from one another. He smiled. "Good morning, Claire." She returned the smile. "Good morning, Mr. Sterling." Alexander took his seat without opening the folder. For several quiet seconds, neither of them spoke. The silence did not feel uncomfortable. It felt respectful. Finally, he folded his hands together. "I wanted to meet with you personally." Claire nodded. I appreciate that. He looked at her with the same calm expression she remembered from the grocery store. I have been thinking about something. She waited quietly. When we first met, you did not know my name. You did not know what I did for a living. You believed I was simply another customer standing behind you. Claire smiled gently. I did. And yet, you treated me with the same kindness and respect you would have shown anyone else. She lowered her eyes for a moment. My parents taught me that every person deserves respect. Alexander smiled faintly. They taught you well. He slowly opened the folder resting on the table. Inside were the interview evaluations. Each page contained handwritten observations from different interviewers. Reliable, honest, excellent listener, natural collaborator, creates trust immediately. Alexander carefully turned the pages toward Claire. I did not write these comments. Our interview panel did. Claire looked at the pages in disbelief. They really thought that? They did. She looked back at him. I only answered their questions honestly. I know. And that is exactly why these evaluations matter. He closed the folder once more. There is something many people misunderstand. They believe companies hire resumes. He paused. I believe companies build their future one person's character at a time. Claire felt emotion rising quietly inside her. For years, she had measured herself by everything she lacked. Money, security, opportunity. No one had ever spoken to her about what she already possessed. Alexander reached into the folder. He removed a cream-colored envelope embossed with the Sterling Global logo. He placed it gently on the table between them. Claire Bennett. His voice remained calm, yet carried unmistakable certainty. On behalf of Sterling Global, I would like to offer you the position of administrative coordinator. Claire stared at the envelope. For a heartbeat, she could not move. Then her hand slowly reached forward. She opened it carefully. The official offer letter rested inside. Her eyes filled with grateful tears. She looked up. Did I really earn this? Alexander answered without the slightest hesitation. Yes. You earned it before you ever walked into this building. The interview simply allowed everyone else to discover what I had already seen. Claire smiled through quiet tears. Not because her life had suddenly become perfect, but because someone had finally recognized the value she had carried all along. Outside the executive windows, the city continued moving as it always had. Inside that quiet room, a new chapter had just begun. Not because a billionaire changed a mother's future, but because a mother never allowed hardship to change her character. Claire walked out of Sterling Global holding the offer letter carefully against her chest. The afternoon sunlight felt warmer than she remembered. The sidewalks looked the same. The buildings had not changed. The city continued moving with its familiar rhythm. Yet somehow, everything felt different. She sat inside her aging sedan for a quiet moment before starting the engine. Then she reached for her phone. The daycare answered after the second ring. Good afternoon. May I please speak with Lily? Only a few seconds later, a cheerful little voice filled the car. Mommy. Claire smiled through grateful tears. I have wonderful news. The little girl giggled. You got the job. Claire laughed softly. How did you know? Because good things happen to good mommies. Claire closed her eyes. For just one peaceful moment, every difficult day behind her suddenly felt worthwhile. I cannot wait to come pick you up. I love you. I love you more. That evening, their celebration was wonderfully simple. A small cheese pizza, apple juice poured into mismatched cups, laughter filling a tiny apartment that suddenly felt much larger than before. Lily proudly taped a new drawing onto the refrigerator. Two smiling people stood beneath a bright yellow sun. Above them, written in careful uneven letters, were three simple words. My best mommy. Claire stood quietly in front of the drawing. Some victories never needed applause. Several weeks passed. Claire settled naturally into her new position at Sterling Global. She arrived early. She listened carefully. She remembered every coworker's name. Whenever someone needed help, she offered it before anyone had to ask. Nothing about her kindness changed simply because her circumstances had improved. One afternoon, while walking through the employee cafeteria, she noticed a young receptionist quietly staring at a vending machine. The young woman counted a few dollar bills before slowly placing a sandwich back inside the refrigerated display. Claire recognized that look immediately. It was the same silent calculation she had made so many times herself. Without drawing attention, she walked over carrying her lunch. "I packed more than I can finish today." She smiled warmly. "Would you help me?" The receptionist hesitated. "I could not possibly. You would actually be helping me." After a brief pause, the young woman accepted the lunch with grateful eyes. "Thank you." Claire simply nodded and continued walking. She never expected anyone to notice, but someone did. From the second-floor balcony overlooking the cafeteria, Alexander Sterling had witnessed the entire exchange. He remained exactly where he was. His executive assistant stepped beside him. Was that intentional? Alexander smiled quietly. Very. She looked toward Claire. "You believed she would become a wonderful employee." Alexander gently shook his head. "I believe she was already a remarkable person. There is a difference." He continued watching as Claire disappeared into the hallway. The grocery store never changed her. The promotion never changed her. Kindness was simply who she had always been. Late that afternoon, Claire prepared to leave for home. As she passed Alexander's office, he stepped into the hallway. "Claire." She stopped. "I wanted to thank you." She looked surprised. "For what?" "For reminding this company." He smiled. "That character is still our greatest investment." Claire lowered her eyes with quiet humility. "I only treated someone the way I once hoped to be treated." Alexander nodded. "And now others will remember how you treated them." They exchanged one final smile before walking in opposite directions. Claire slipped the folded grocery receipt from her wallet one last time. The paper had softened around the edges from being carried every day. The handwritten message remained perfectly clear. Every good mother deserves one easier day. She folded it carefully again. Money had purchased one can of infant formula, but one quiet act of compassion had given something far greater. It had restored hope, and hope once shared with another heart has a remarkable way of finding its way back.